Welcome back to The Grind. In this video, we are going to take a look at Act 7, Chapter 2, Quest number 6, as far as Exploration Guide goes. So this first lane we're going to take a look at is the Mixmaster one. Now, if you complete this lane, you're going to remove this linked node that will actually help you in the boss fight. It's juice. So every 10 seconds, you're going to ramp up your damage, but you're not going to get any damage from when you destroy the plot armor. However, your basic attacks are going to start hitting really hard. So this node also has a buff synthesis where if you have a stun and then apply an armor break, you will get a cold snap, which otherwise you're going to have the champion evading a lot. Now, if you stun and armor break, Medusa has access to that very easily. You get a cold snap, which then prevents the opponent from having any evades trigger, and you can just fight normally. The one thing to consider is that they do have armored assault, and the buildup of those chitin charges, once they hit 10, is going to give them an armor up buff, and so then they will go fully unblockable until you remove that armor up. Now, if you do armor shatter with Medusa, you cannot apply any new armor breaks, and therefore you will not be able to remove the armor up buffs, and you will also not be able to get any more cold snap debuffs. So you can use any champion that can stun and then apply an armor break. Now, alternatively, you can just use a champion that has access to cold snaps like Elsa Bloodstone. Once you've triggered an evade one time, then the next time you use your medium ending combo, you'll put on a cold snap debuff, and therefore they will not be able to evade. Now, Elsa Bloodstone does not have a way to deal with the armor up buffs, so you'll have to deal with a fully unblockable opponent for the entire fight. But you can still use her intercept mechanic with well-timed blocks. Now, alternatively, you can just use any powerful evade counter like Nick Fury. Once you have over 5 tactical charges, they will not evade. And once you have over 15 tactical charges, you'll be fully unblockable, and that will make the unblockable opponent less of a problem because you don't have to worry about parrying to get your ins. You can just wait till they hold block, and then you can dash into them. You'll go unblockable, and you can continue to attack in without much difficulty. Now, the next champion we're going to look at is Dr. Doom, who doesn't really have any specific ability to work against the evade, but you just use the basic mechanics as far as the light, medium when you parry them, and that will allow you to do a full 5-hit combo until they go unblockable. At that point, you need to nullify the buff. So you also have to have a strong nullify champion for this, and that will allow you to control the armor up buffs or prevent them from triggering in the first place, and let you continue to do your light, medium, or heavy attacks, or whatever you would like to do. But this does make the fight go significantly slower. Now, Ghost is another option because you don't have to worry about them being unblockable, because you can just phase intercept the entire fight, and that will allow you to get your ins whenever you need to. After you phase, Ghost's first hit cannot be evaded because it will be a critical hit, and the same goes for her special attacks. If you get the right timing on it, they will not be able to evade it. Now, Professor X is also a fantastic evade counter once he is above 25 channeling charges, and you can get that pretty easily and quickly at the start of the fight before they go unblockable. But again, you're going to be dealing with a fully unblockable opponent for the entire fight. You can also intermittently use his falter mechanic to get some ins if needed. Now, Apocalypse isn't the best for this, but because you can predict when they will evade, it is a little bit easier to manage, and as soon as you have them evade 10 times, they will never evade again, and that carries over from fight to fight. You can see now we've triggered it 6 times, so there's a 60% chance. So if you want to commit and don't have any other options, he is an option for you. Now, this next lane is buff synthesis, armor up precision to give you a true strike. It also has flare, but it also has a ton of resistances. So your champions are going to be hitting like wet noodles unless you have the true strike. Now, the node that you'll remove is power rush, which actually makes the fight harder. It makes the cooldown 5 seconds shorter, or sorry, the countdown to destruction 5 seconds shorter. So you have less time to complete your missions in order to get the damage against the Gwynmaster. Now, as far as this buff synthesis goes, every time you have an armor break and then trigger a precision, for example, when you dex, you'll convert it into a 15-second true strike buff. This will allow you to get full damage despite all the resistances, plus you have the flare node giving you 300% damage as well. Now, most champions that have access to armor up buffs don't hit very hard, and so champions like Angela are still going to take a long time to finish the fight and make this very slow. If you are going to go this route, you have to use a champion that can regenerate, because most of the ones that I tested didn't work out very well, and therefore they would die before being able to kill the opponent. Now, Warlock, however, does have access to healing with his his special 3. So he was a very good option for the Havoc fight, especially because every time you parry his non-contact attacks, you'll power drain, which makes it difficult for him to build up plasma charges. This means that even if you accidentally dex and lose your armor up, you shouldn't take plasma damage, but if you apply any bleeds to him, the damage over time helps him stack them faster, so that can be dangerous. The next fight we're going to look at is against Stark Enhanced Spider-Man, and with Hyperion, we used him because he has access to multiple incinerates, and with Flare, the damage over time effects are boosted significantly, but the resistances don't really affect it much, so you can still get great damage with that, and my 5-star rank 5 did great for a couple of the fights. And then Nick Fury was also amazing because his bleeds do so much damage with the Flare, and they're not minimized by the resistances either, so you can get tons of damage. And this fight against Daredevil was finished in 30 seconds, and that was one of the quickest fights on the path. So Nick Fury is amazing for a lot of fights actually on this path. Now, Archangel was my MVP, and my Archangel is only at rank 4, and still we were tearing apart these champions because those neurotoxins, when you stack them up, just do some ridiculous amounts of damage with the Flare node. So Archangel is an MVP for this lane. Now, the next path we're going to look at is the bottom left lane here, starting with Superior Iron Man. The opponents on this path are not too difficult to deal with, and depending on your situation, but maybe Morningstar with the bleed, you might want to consider that. So the nodes on this one are actually kind of interesting. It's no retreat and no surrender, as well as heavy assault. So what happens is every time you dash back twice in a short period, you'll get a degen, but when you heavy the opponent and knock them down with the heavy, you're going to transfer it to them and it's going to deal huge damage. While you have less bars of power, you're going to have higher resistance to the degen. So you want to use your power as soon as you get it, and then always trying to dash back twice quickly and then heavy attack to transfer it back to them. So that's a pretty simple, straightforward one. Now this next one is the one with Icarus and another buff synthesis lane that I took for completion. So Ghost is an amazing cheese option for this one. Just like all other Icarus ones, you can deal some ridiculous amounts of damage on this lane, especially if you stack up some prowess before throwing off your special 2 with a bunch of Furies as well. That hit was way overkill. Angela is also amazing for this one, but her buildup is maybe a little bit slower because she has to build up to 3 bars of power instead of just 2. But in this lane, you also have the Matador node, so you gain power when opponents use a special attack. So every time he throws off a special, you're going to gain a bar of power, and ideally you want to bait out special 1 so you can be more efficient with that. Now, every time you get a Fury and then get a precision, you will convert it into prowess. So you'll get Fury from the Icarus node and you'll get a precision from dexing, but also here you can see Angela getting a prowess each time she attacks, because after she has 2 bars of power, she's going to trigger precision most of the time, and then her special 3 here one-shots this massive health pool, so she's a fantastic option. But you can really use any champion if you need a certain champion for a specific counter on the lane, and you just want to attack into them to build up Furies with the Icarus node, and then before you get too many and before they expire, you want to dex to get rid of them and convert them into prowess and get some big damage off special attacks. Now the next lane we're going to look at is the one above that, which is the Energy Adoption Fire, and it also has this skill Shake It Off node. So every time a skill champion dashes back, they'll remove a debuff. So every time you attack in, you're going to get most of the time an Incinerate, but you can get them off by dashing back with a skilled champion. Now this Incinerate will not trigger if you have a bleed on the champion, but they also have shifting immunity, so you can't always apply bleed. Human Torch can somewhat cheese this because he can build up lots of smolders, so even though they're going to be regenerating while you have an Incinerate on them, you can still deal more damage and get tons of these Incinerates to help reduce the amount of regeneration that they get. Ideally, you probably only want to use him in the mutant matchup, or sorry, the mystic matchups. Now, Silver Surfer will also work because he's resistant to the Incinerates and will just boost his damage. Ghost can cheese this as well because she can convert all the Incinerates into damage as well. And then any skill champion can remove the Incinerates, ideally one that can bleed, because when you bleed, you'll not get those Incinerates to begin with, and it also has bleed vulnerability, so you'll be dealing increased damage while the opponent is bleeding, but again, with the shifting immunity, the timing will sometimes not always allow you to bleed them. And the next lane we're going to take a look at now has Under Pressure, so if you dash back twice too quickly in 1.2 seconds, you'll get a Disorient. It also has Heavy Assault, Encroaching Stun, and then the last node, or sorry, Foresight, and then the last node is True Strike. So we're just going to take a quick look at this here. It's a pretty simple and straightforward lane. You can pretty much use anybody, but obviously champions who can shrug off or go immune to disorient will work as well. But again, any champion can work. So we're going to demonstrate with Dr. Doom. What's nice about Dr. Doom is he can chain on with the shock debuff. He can chain on heavy attacks to take advantage of the heavy assault. You do have to keep in mind that the encroaching stun timer is always going. You want to try to intercept as much as you can to get that foresight, and then chain on heavies after that to take advantage of both at the same time. There you want to time your special attacks when the encroaching stun timer is going to go out, and ideally you want to intercept before throwing your special attacks. So we time the intercept, the special attack, and the encroaching stun timer. Now Ghost is very easy to get intercepts. However, because of the True Strike, you're not going to be able to phase any of the hits, so that's going to make using Ghost a little bit more challenging. Human Torch is another good option, not necessarily for the Cosmic Ghost Rider fight, but there are some Mystics and other fights on this path that Human Torch will work well for, because you can get bonus damage off of your heavy attacks because of the heavy assault. But really the whole main strategy is to take advantage of intercepting and getting that foresight buff, and then doing your damage over time effects as well as your special attacks, and trying to time that with the encroaching stun. Now Nick Fury is also a good option because he can get some nice bleed damage, but you can see for the Mephisto fight, Human Torch would be great, and then Nick Fury will be great for a bunch of the other fights here. You can pretty much use any champion, but this lane is more about coordinating and timing all the different nodes that are on it. It's not too challenging, it's just a little bit more thought process involved. So let me know who you use for this lane if you have any other thoughts, and I do hope this video was helpful. Good luck, and I hope to see you in the next video.